Hello, you're about to hear Good Morning Seminole, our monthly signature event. Please enjoy.
First, we have Chris Fojo, SDN Alliance Commercial Real Estate Advisors. He is a senior advisor with them, a commercial real estate and longtime chamber member as well. We have the wonderful Seminole County Commissioner, Amy Lockhart. Chris Ham, the Executive Director of Rescue Outreach Mission. And Matt Borchelt, who is the COO of the Sharing Center. One more time, let's give a nice round of applause for everybody. So we're going to talk about an issue that is it's probably a little bit sobering this morning. But we're going to leave here with a lot more information about something that affects all of us in our community. So let me just go ahead and start. Chris Ham, because we got two Chris's. They're sitting next to each other. I can't even point to them. But Chris Ham, why don't we start with you? And we're going to probably get up just about everybody to answer this question. What do you consider the state of homelessness in Seminole County today?
Thanks, Alan. First of all, let me recognize our board is here today. So if you'd like to meet any of the folks from Rescue Outreach Board, they're right up here. The state of homelessness today is challenging and getting worse. Every single day, the biggest driver for those experiencing homelessness is the cost of living. Right now, rents are on average over $2,000, which means your household income needs to be over $60,000 a year. We're starting school teachers at $51,000. So do the math. So that's the number one driver, is the lack of affordable and attainable housing in our community, and it's rising. And just to give you a frame of reference, this month, the Seminole County Public Schools just let me know that we have 318 Seminole County Public School students who are sleeping in their cars or in tents in our community. I'll just stop right there. That's not counting the 40 I have in shelter. That's 318 kids that are enrolled in our schools who are sleeping in cars or in tents or somewhere else that are unsheltered. That's unacceptable to me.
Matt, how would you describe the state of homelessness in Seminole County?
Well, Chris had some good points. And I got to make sure I say these stats right because Homeless Services Network is here. But we just recently finished up the 2024 PIT count, which is a point-in-time count where we go out and we find people that are experiencing homelessness, survey them. And there were 450 individuals counted in Seminole County. And I'm sure Brian would agree that's way understated. Because when we have the point-in-time count, we can't find everybody. So there's people that are working, so they're not in their camps. There's people that are couch surfing. Way, way, way understated in the schools, because even though kids may be homeless, they're usually with maybe another family member, even though they are homeless. So what we really focus on is if you assume the same margin of error for how many people we count, is there was a 61% increase from 2023 to 2024. So whatever that number was in 2023, you got to assume, and I believe that it's at least a 61% increase just in 1 year of that many people that have housing insecurity. And that's a scary thing to me.
Commissioner, how would you describe it?
I don't even know that this is on. Oh, it is. It's complicated. Homelessness is very complicated everywhere, not just in Seminole County, because the face of homelessness is very different depending on your specific circumstance. And the funding sources that are available for the different types of homelessness are different. Every peg doesn't fit in the same round hole. And so these folks who are the experts, truly, who are our social service agencies and our nonprofits who are serving our homeless community, really have to figure out how to be almost all things to all people in the homeless realm, and it's incredibly complicated.
Chris? And I just want to make sure the three others other than Chris Fojo are actively involved in the homelessness issue. Chris is here because contrary to a lot of, I hear it over and over again, that homelessness is not a business issue when it actually is. And Chris, being with commercial real estate, sees and the impact of homelessness throughout the region, not just Seminole County. So Chris, that's why Chris is up here. He is not the homelessness expert, he is the business expert.
Thanks, Alan. Appreciate that, because everybody kept asking me, why are you on the panel, Chris? So
That's why.
that. Thanks for that explanation. But being in commercial real estate, homelessness, it definitely is a factor in that. We are definitely seeing more and more incidences. We deal with land, we deal with vacant buildings, and so we have to, on a regular basis, check on our properties or the properties we represent, to ensure that the properties remain remain vacant, basically, or don't have homeless encampments on them, because it leads to more complications for the owners when they either decide to sell or develop those properties. And we are seeing it more and more often, and that we do have to review our properties or check on our properties much more frequently than we've had in the past.
Gotcha. Chris Ham, let me go back to you and start you out again as well. How do you define someone as experiencing homelessness? Because we've heard different numbers, we've heard different, couch surfing, those sorts of things. How do you actually define somebody as homeless?
So for us at Rescue Outreach Mission, as the only homeless emergency shelter, we work specifically with those who are unhoused. These are the individuals, the men, women, and children who have been evicted from their units, who can no longer afford where they're living, and they're sleeping in their cars, they're sleeping on their streets. The thing that I want folks to realize is if you've met one person who's experiencing homelessness, you've met one person. And the face of homelessness has changed drastically. The largest number of folks that we're seeing are specifically women in their 60s and 70s. They were living by themselves, paying $700 or $800 a month for rent. Well, now rent for them has gone up to $1,200. You're on a fixed income of $1,400 in Social Security. We're all business folks in here, we can do the math. What's gonna give? You can no longer afford your medicine, your Medicare Part B, and all of that other stuff on top of you. So that's what we're seeing now, are seniors specifically in their 60s and 70s coming to us. We're also seeing a lot of families with the evictions that have been restarted and the cost of rent coming up. So for us, as we define someone experiencing homelessness, for us, it's those who have no place to stay other than their cars or the tents or street benches or somewhere else. And that's where our focus is at Rescue Outreach Mission, are those men, women, and children in that situation.
Matt?
Yeah, Chris is exactly right. One of our fastest growing group of clients that we have in the Oasis is seniors. And like you said, it's fixed income, but it's also, some people have paid off their house, but they can't afford their home insurance anymore because it continues to go up and up and up. And we have quite a few seniors not even getting service in the Oasis yet, but we're doing everything we can to keep them in their house. So we're giving them food every month so they don't have to spend money on food, and that they can just afford their rent, their home insurance, mortgage, whatever that is. So, I absolutely agree. So when we talked about this, I was going to say Webster's definition of homelessness is, but then I thought I'd really date myself, so I should have started with ChatGPT probably. But I would say, as far as Rescue Outreach Mission and the Sharing Center, we might look at it a little differently because we have a lot of prevention services. So we not only look at people that don't have a roof tonight, but people that really don't know where they're going to have shelter in 30 days or so. So if we can get them in early, then we can help prevent them to become homeless as well.
Real quickly, just so people understand the difference, give your 30-second elevator speech, Chris and Matt. Matt, go ahead, give your 30-second. Make sure everybody knows what the Oasis and what the Sharing Center does.
Sure, we're the Sharing Center. We're in Longwood, Florida. If you're not familiar with us, we have full wraparound services for anybody experiencing poverty and homelessness. The Oasis is the only permanent drop-in center for those experiencing homelessness in Seminole County. People experience homelessness come take a shower, get their hair cut, do their laundry. But most importantly, they get to meet with a dedicated case manager that helps come up with a plan to get them out of homelessness and walk that path with them. Anybody getting those services has to meet with the case manager on a regular basis. There's a fine line between enabling and helping, and we want to make sure we're on the side of helping. Besides the Oasis, we have Families in Crisis program that helps prevent people from becoming homelessness. We help 20, 30 families a month stay in their house by helping with mortgage and utility payments. We also have the largest free food pantry in Seminole County, where last year was about 2.7 million pounds of food that we put out into the community. We just started mental health services a little over a year ago, and that's an internal program. So anybody that comes to the Sharing Center and and is a client has access to free mental health counseling, which also breaks down another barrier not only for homelessness, but keeping people preventing from homeless.
Chris Ham?
Was that 30 seconds? Sorry.
A little bit longer, but that's okay. Both of you guys do a lot in the community, so you could take more than 30 seconds, Chris.
All right. I'm a retired pastor. You gave me a microphone and a group of people. We might pass a plate later. We are Seminole County's only homeless emergency shelter. We manage 120 permanent beds. We oftentimes have more than that. For folks who are experiencing homelessness, we have dorm rooms for single men, for single women, and for families. We also coordinate with the Seminole County Emergency Services. So we open up as a hurricane shelter and a cold weather shelter. So the other night we actually had 39 children came in for cold weather, which was on top, an additional 20 kids with their parents. And we believe in something called housing focused or housing first. So our entire goal is to move people into permanent housing. We provide 3 meals a day. So this year, up until December 1st, we've provided 97,000 meals. We'll do over probably 120,000 meals. We've helped 215 people transition into permanent housing since January 1st, which is pretty amazing. Thank you. We've got a fantastic team. We do case management. These are our life coaches 7 days a week, and these do trauma-informed care that work with our folks, come alongside, write budgets, and listen, and help people in their work. We believe strongly in equipping and empowering and not enabling, because that's one of the worst things you can do is continue to enable people. So that's our big focus is on that. And so we have beds. We provide everything for everybody when they come inside of our doors and really try to treat them as guests, not anything else. We want to offer respect, compassion, and dignity, because when you met one person experiencing homelessness, you've met one person.
Commissioner, let's go back to the other question. How do you define someone as experiencing homelessness?
Well, I do think that Chris and Matt did a great job of identifying it. I think when we talk about the different roles that different organizations play because of all of the different types of homelessness, it's important to recognize that nonprofits play a significant role. Local government plays a significant role. The business community plays a significant role. Each one of us has a part to play, and without anyone fully committed and involved, we will not continue. We won't see gains being made. I think our community services department in Seminole County also has a rehousing program. We, in the last fiscal year, permanently housed over 200 folks. And then we do bridge housing through funding. I'm so glad our partners from HSN are here. The regional model of homelessness with our continuum of care, which is Orange, Osceola, and Seminole County, it's kind of how the federal government has laid out the way that they're going to distribute funds for homelessness to regions in the state. So thrilled to be a part of this COC, but our homelessness in Seminole County is very different than homelessness in downtown Orlando or in Orange or even in Osceola. So when we talk about homelessness in Seminole, or I see someone talking about what is coming down the pike with homelessness in Orlando, it will be similar, but not the same. And I think that's important for folks and business owners, especially in Seminole County, to understand as we talk about some of the things that are coming down the pike. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
It's interesting that you say that, because one of the things I think probably most of us in this room, how we experience somebody or interact with somebody experiencing homelessness is at a street corner or walking down the street. You're somebody's panhandling. Chris, I know panhandling is just one aspect of homelessness, right? There's other faces, and Commissioner, maybe you grab the mic, so go ahead.
Did only because the premise that a panhandler is homeless is sometimes a false premise. And we work very closely with our sheriff's office and law enforcement to help that dynamic. I am here to tell you that our sheriff's office, I'll recognize Lisa Spriggs, who's here today representing the sheriff, and also on the Board of Rescue Outreach Mission. About 50% of the people that you see out there panhandling are not homeless, right? So I would implore you to please not give money to panhandlers. You are not helping them. You are not helping the community. We have so many nonprofits in this. If you want to give money to help someone who is truly experiencing homelessness, I've got a list. These gentlemen are fabulous, but we have so many agencies. So that's my response to that.
That's perfect. Chris, did you want to add anything?
Well, I mean, I was just going to add that going on what Amy had indicated is that homelessness is very complex. So, I mean, people, I guess, are homeless for many, many different reasons, from being on fixed incomes to having just a bad scenario where, you know, they don't have a place to go, the breakdown of their family unit. So, you know, in my view, you know, from a business perspective, you know, all of those are aspects that can affect actually businesses in terms of the ability of their staff. Maybe there are scenarios where their staff are experiencing homelessness. So it definitely has a direct impact on the businesses here in Seminole County.
He answered the question that I was going to ask him next. So is there anything else you'd like to add about why this is a business issue? Anything else you'd like to add on? Because the question was coming up next on how does this impact businesses, and you gave a little bit of it. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, I mean, obviously, from a homeless perspective, you know, businesses or some businesses need to, you know, apply different resources or expend resources that they could potentially be applying to the business themselves, to grow their business, to train their staffing, et cetera. But they may need to, for example, you know, assist their staffing members on, you know, that are going through a homeless scenario, et cetera. So I guess the basic aspect is the allocation of resources at the end of the day.
Anybody else want to add on to that as well, why this is a business issue? Matt?
Yeah, I was just going to add that. Sorry, a little loud.
That's all right. They're controlling it over there. Just talk
I've
as
known
close
Chris
to
for
the
like
mic
10
as
years.
possible.
That's probably the first time he's told me I'm loud. No, I'd just like to add that homelessness, it drains the pocketbook of both businesses and individuals. Depending on the study you look at, it costs $20,000 to $30,000, and that may be understated, a year for someone to be on the streets because of the resources they're pulling from the hospitals, from the government, theft, damage, other variables like that. So
That was an interesting statistic. Can you repeat that one more time?
yeah, depending on the study you look at, and Brian, you can tell me if I'm wrong, it's $20,000 to $30,000 a year for one person experiencing homelessness on the streets that they drain resources from different areas. So.
Wow. All right, let's start looking forward a little bit. And one of the biggest things that's coming down the pike is there was legislation passed this year. There was kind of a very sweeping legislation that basically prevents, puts significant requirements on public spaces owned by local governments. I'm going to start with you, Commissioner. Can you give a little bit of an update on what that law was for people that may not know, and also what steps Seminole County is taking to address the law?
Sure. I can attempt to do that because that's another thing that we're working with folks around the state to really get our arms around exactly what this legislation, which will be implemented January 1st across the state, what does it really mean to us in local government? And it's not just counties, it's cities as well. Interestingly enough, the state has exempted itself from the statute. But that's a topic for another day. So basically and Representative Garrison from the Jacksonville area, this was his bill, and he truly, genuinely went down this path to protect public spaces for the public. Stepping over someone who may be intoxicated and homeless sleeping on a sidewalk. How do we protect the public from having that potential very negative experience and interaction? How do we protect public spaces? And so what I worry about, and one of my colleagues, Commissioner Andrea Herr, is here this morning. She is not just a fabulous county commissioner, but a fabulous advocate and board member for Rescue Outreach Mission. One of the things that's very dangerous for us as elected officials is to start writing legislation when we are not the experts on a topic. And that's why I was very quick to say, first, I am not the expert in any way, shape, or form on homelessness. Our job as elected officials is to learn as much as we can from the folks who are experts, and then hopefully not screw it up. Because there is great legislation and great local codes, and there is really bad governance out there. And I genuinely believe, if anyone is here that has a direct line to the Florida legislature, I believe that Representative Garrison intended this for good. There are a lot of things that we have to figure out in the application of this. And he says that he specifically left it very broad because he recognized that homelessness around the state was very different. And how we may apply it in Seminole County will be very different than how it may be used or needed, even down in Orange County. So with that as the framework, basically what this legislation says is that sleeping on a publicly owned municipal piece of property, whether it's right-of-way, a park, a vacant piece of property, the local government can be held legally responsible. We cannot permit or allow someone to sleep on property owned by a city or a county. The remedy for a local business owner or for a private citizen is that you can sue your local government for allowing that to happen on your property, because there are negative impacts, truly, to businesses and families who have a homeless encampment or people sleeping regularly on city property near them. We recognize that. So the county or city would have 5 days. Once the complaint, which comes in, has to come in writing to the local government, is received, the county or the city has 5 days to remedy it. How are we going to remedy it? Well, that's when our friends from law enforcement come involved, because Commissioner Herr and I are not going to go out and say to the homeless person, you can't stay here, you have to move somewhere else. Well, where are they going to go? We can either drop them off at Rescue Outreach Mission. You're kind of fullish.
Dropped off every 24 hours a day.
Right.
Yep.
And truly, no one wants to make, no one I know, no one that I work with in this space wants to make homelessness a crime. That's not the goal. And so partnering with local law enforcement is going to be critical in figuring out how this actually gets implemented. So if we don't, so 5 days has gone by, the homeless individual or individuals are still sleeping overnight on that city or county-owned piece of property, what happens next? Well, it goes to the courts. And you essentially wind up having the ability to sue yourself, because let's be honest, there is no dollar that Seminole County or a city has that they didn't take from you first. We are funded by taxes. So when we have to pay out a lawsuit or a settlement, we are paying that person back your money. So I'm not saying please don't sue us, because get in line. It happens all the time. But there has to be a way that we can work together as a community to work on the remedy, even though the state legislature has given that to you as your remedy to sue us. I'm confident there are other ways that we'll be able to work together to figure out how to make that happen.
Chris?
Yeah, so there was a lot about this House bill and the accompanying Senate bill that a lot of folks didn't like, but I'll be honest with you, I'm kind of glad it passed. And here's the reason why, and I'm probably going to anger Brian from HSN. It's allowed us to have a conversation about those experiencing homelessness in our community. I've taken my family, and I took the Lake Brantley Band a couple years ago, up to Washington, D.C. I don't know if you've been to D.C. recently, but when you walk through Washington, D.C., every city park has tents in it. You go out to California, there's tents out there. Well, that's unacceptable. I live in the greatest county in the greatest state, in the greatest nation of the world, and if we have folks who feel like they have to sleep in a tent or in their car, we can do a whole lot better. So the good part about this legislation is it's bringing this conversation to the forefront so we can have positive interactions like we do with our wonderful sheriff talking about not wanting to criminalize homelessness, and our county commission that supports conversations and ways to be creative in what we can do for those who are experiencing homelessness. And so the good part about this bill is that we're now talking about this, and hopefully the legislature can put some teeth to it. They did put some money to it. We haven't seen it at Rescue Outreach Mission yet. I'm hoping to get some funds from it. Brian, no pressure, but no, we're hoping to get some funding from it to help us continue to operate, to help those who are experiencing homelessness. But the big challenge, again, is this giving us an opportunity to talk about it. How can we help our neighbors in need? And like I talked about, the biggest driver is the cost of rent and the lack of affordable and attainable housing in our community. That's the largest single driver. You know, the big misconception, you shouldn't have given me a microphone, Alan, is...
I'll cut you off when I need to.
That's fine. Everybody who is experiencing homelessness is a drug addict or an alcoholic or is lazy. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Many of the folks that we have that are in our shelter work in our city municipalities. We've had school teachers. We've had servers from restaurants and other places that are at our shelter. Many of our folks are working full-time jobs, and they're trying to make ends meet. And so I want to be honest with you. We've had city employees, county employees, and others who have been at our shelter since I've been there as executive director in the last 3 years.
So let's talk. You mentioned DC and California. What are some things that are being done across the country that are positive, that are working? Matt, why don't you go ahead and just take that started off?
Yeah, as Amy kind of mentioned, every area, every place is completely different. So there's the housing first model that gets a lot of talk when you talk about homelessness, and that is, I know Chris is a big advocate for housing first. And then there's modified housing first models. Some work some places, some don't. We got to remember that the face of homelessness is not the same. Every person that's experienced homelessness is a person with a name, with a story, with a unique experience. So Chris could probably talk more about models than I can, but the way I look at it is it really all comes down to case management. It doesn't matter what model you put in place if you don't have someone there to support the people that you're putting in that model. So we made the investment of going from 1 case manager to 3 case managers just in our Oasis, the respite center. That was 3 years ago. In the first year, we went from 1 to 3 case managers. We went from housing 12 people out of the Oasis to 66. Last fiscal year, we housed 105 with those 3 case managers. In the first month of this fiscal year that just started for us, we housed 36. So it's not about bringing them in and just giving them clothes and giving them food and feeling good about ourselves. It's about putting some real teeth into what their situation is. And in order to have those case managers, we need the resources to do that. If we triple our case managers, we're tripling the resources we need to be able to sustain that. So that's where the money needs to go.
Does anybody else have some models that are working? If not, we'll move on to the next question. We talked about affordable housing, and the cost of housing right now. And keep in mind that even with $1,500, $2,000 monthly rent, to get into that, you need first and last months plus a security deposit. So you got to have $6,000 in cash just to move into a traditional apartment. Chris Fojo, I'm going to start with you on this. And I know you're on the commercial side of it, but what steps can we take to lower the cost of housing or create affordable housing, attainable housing, all the different types of words on that? Anything from a real estate development angle that we could do better?
Sure. I mean, that's like a 3-day conference we can talk about, but...
You got a minute?
I got 30 seconds. All right. I mean, real estate is a highly complex. It's a highly complex sector involving so many different aspects of the community. Really, at the end of the day, just to kind of highlight a few of them. Really, at the end of the day, is regulations are the codes and the regulations that we as developers or as real estate people have to abide by are very good for safety and very good for for the standard of living basically. But I guess the consequence of that.
It's okay, I won't be mad.
You won't be. I'm trying to be as diplomatic as I can, but basically, the rules and the codes and the regulations that we need to abide by, unfortunately, make the development and the maintenance of property very, very expensive, and so for the lower end of the income earning spectrum, it unfortunately is a very makes it difficult for them at the end of the day. So we've got to figure out, for most people, I think the codes are fine, but if we can, I don't know if there's a possibility from a homeless perspective to have maybe a separate level of codes that we need to attain really at the end of the day. The second thing really is the cost of construction. And on top of that is the insurance, the property taxes, have gone up significantly. And property taxes are based upon valuations that are done every year. For homeowners, we have the homestead exemptions that kind of cap how much your property taxes go up. But for multifamily properties and for this property owners that own property on a commercial basis, over the last 5 years, our property taxes have probably gone up on the average of about 10% a year. And 10% doesn't sound a lot, but when you're dealing with $1 million properties, it's a big, big number. And that unfortunately is passed down to the renters, and to those that have to deal with housing. So,
Commissioner?
30 seconds.
Well, I think, and I love next to me. When we started several years ago talking about putting together an affordable housing or an attainable housing toolbox in Seminole County, we put together a strategic plan, most of you would refer to it as, and we wanted to put as many tools in the toolbox as we could as local government to alleviate some of those barriers. If you are building affordable housing in Seminole County, there are different impact fees that are waived. We have the ability now to land bank publicly owned property so that we can work with an affordable housing developer so that the cost of the land isn't prohibitive to building that affordable housing unit or units. So there are quite a few things that we've put together. Continuing to revisit those and seeing how many of them are utilized will help us know whether they were the right tools in the toolbox. Because again, and we think we know, we're like, oh, well, we'll do this and we'll offer developers that and then they'll want to build affordable housing. And the reality is affordable housing developers are not beating down our door. We don't have, it's just not a lot. So with some ARPA funds, which were COVID federal funds, our community services folks put together a fabulous program that was basically a funding that is a recurring source of revenue so that we can partner with the private sector and give the seed money to build these houses, lend the property owner, the new property owner, the money as it's paid back through at a very reasonable rate. They go out and get their mortgage through the program, and then we can reinvest those funds into more affordable units. It's a very unique concept. It's only been in place for a couple of years. We're working with Habitat and Specs and some others. It's been, so far, seems to be wildly successful. But I think from a local government, local business partnership perspective, we need to hear from you all what you think works and what is most important to you if you are in this space of real estate and development. Because government should not be, I'm from the government, I'm here to help, right? That we should not be in the pole position, depending on where you are in your faith and faith-based community. This is a job truly for the church and for the faith-based community. And that may lose me some votes to say that, but government has had to step in to fill the void and the vacuum of what truly nonprofits and those who are members of the faith community should be doing in terms of caring for those, the least of us in this community.
So we could probably talk for another hour on this. We don't have time for questions, unfortunately. Folks will be up here to ask questions afterwards. I'm sure they'll stick around. But real quick, we're going to go rapid fire because we have 2 minutes. We have actually a minute, I think. So you got maybe 20 seconds each. One thing, we have more than 100 business leaders in this room today. What is one thing that each of them can do today or tomorrow to address this issue from a business standpoint? Amanda, I'm going to give it to you. Again, very quickly, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, one item that they can do. Don't repeat.
Well, you've all had some thoughts in your head about what we talked about today. Don't leave today and forget about what we talked about. It takes everybody, as Amy said, it takes government, business, and nonprofit organizations working together. Don't think of it as giving to charity. Think of it as partnering with an agency that you know will do good and make a difference so that everybody's safer in our county and wants to work in our county and play in our county.
Chris Ham?
You can always make donations. My board would yell at me if I didn't lead with that, to help out, to assist, come alongside, get to know the folks as individuals, realize this is, I like to say it's a 4-part table with 4 legs. It's government, faith community, business community, and individuals are all part of this solution together, and get to know us. Come hang out, let's talk, let's have conversations, and see how we can work together to help those in need.
Chris, Fojo.
Homelessness has been an issue back from biblical days. So, this is not something new that we've been dealing with. But for me, I think the homelessness stems from the breakdown of the family unit. So there's nobody there to support these people that are near and dear to them. So my view would be, again, it's a community effort. It's not just government. It's not their problem. It's our problem. So it's got to be create awareness and get involved in any kind of NGO. It will help.
And finally, Commissioner.
Yeah. So find your favorite nonprofit that works with homelessness and figure out how you can support them, whether it's volunteering time or donating money. And my team at Seminole County put together a list of some of the agencies that we work with. Obviously, Sharing Center and Rescue Outreach Mission are awesome, but here are just a couple of others. Safe House of Seminole is our only domestic violence shelter in Seminole County. Another emergency shelter like ROM, but for victims of domestic violence. Aspire Health Partners has a homeless outreach program with the HOPE team. Service and Love Together, SALT Outreach. Boys Town of Central Florida, Empower, RISE, which is Pathways to Home. You all may remember that group. Pathways to Care, which is Catholic Charities. Angels of Mercy Ministries. Of course, our Seminole County Community Assistance Program, Salvation Army, Hope Helps, and Jewish Family Services. So if any of those ring a bell or warm the cockles of your heart, figure out a way to get involved and support them.
All right, let's give everybody a nice round of applause.
Thanks for listening. To learn more about the Seminole County Chamber, please visit seminolebusiness.org or check us out on our social media at Seminole County Chamber.